in order for humanity to learn and to engage with one another, is we all have to get on the same page. When we think of the environment and how we look after that, it comes from in here, not here. This is a beautiful gift that Creator gave us, but sometimes it gets confused. And the old people always shared with us, speak from here, think from here, and act from here. You won't make mistakes. When I think of Kiganawski, or our mother, and how we've come to a point that's very dangerous, we need to reflect on how we carry ourselves in life. We need to reflect on what's important to us. Is it Sunias or is it our relatives? When I tell people that I live with the land, is I don't live on the land, I live with the land, because her and I are part of each other.
As a child, we were taught about the land. We were taught about our things that were around us, like the plants, the trees, the berries, how to take care of it. I also remember, like, we had 3 big fields. We lived off of the land when I was a child. And, we would only work a certain portion of the land each year, and then we would have to go to the next area. What we're lacking right now is education for our young people on the values that were taught to us as children, how to take care of the land. I remember the first time I saw my father and my uncles burning. They call it control burning now, but back in the day it was called burning the brush. And I was mortified, like I was really scared, and I can remember my uncle coming over to me and saying, no, this is what's needed to make things grow, and there'll be different species coming up, and and we learned those things as a child. Children nowadays don't learn that. I remember a couple of weeks ago, I was in school for 3 days. They had, what do they call it? Something to do with mental health anyway. And it was a couple of days prior to World Water Day. So of course, it was my chance to talk about the water. And I said to the children, like, how long do you stay in the shower? And one of the kids said, about an hour. And I said, just remember now, like, how much water you're using unnecessarily. You're just as clean after 5 minutes as you are after an hour. And you could see the thought process going in their minds, because this was middle school, right? And we need to get back to that. We need to start educating our children on the ways of the land, because, we are the land. The land is us. And if we destroy it like we're doing, it won't be there for the next 7 generations. So that's what we need to be doing. So the values that, our traditional people had is not what the people who are managing the land now has, and we need to get back to that.
Nunavut means our land. Tungavik means anchor. The Inuit beneficiaries are the anchors for what happens in our land. Inuit ate caribou meat for thousands of years. For many, many years, they ate caribou. And the caribou were getting so low in numbers in Baffin Island eastern Arctic Nunavut area. They had to stop the caribou hunting for 3 years. And so the caribou in that area can grow in numbers. And with that, Inuit started ordering caribou meat by freight from other communities from my area, Katumit region, Kivalliq region, and that created a lot of greed in terms of, because people in Baffin Island were willing to pay enough money to pay for the meat, because they ate that meat their whole lives. And it, in so many ways, created greed. And I often think about that because when I worked in a diamond mine in Northwest Territories, I met a young man, Indigenous person, a hunter. His wife had given him a bag of dried caribou meat to give to me. And I offered to pay him. And he said no. He said, Indigenous people should never sell what's given to us from the land. We have been blessed in so many ways, but we have to look after our land.
When I sit with NRCan, and that's Natural Resources of Canada, and they ask us our opinion on how to do things, how to move forward in a good way, we remind them of that when they first came out with Canada was going to plant 2 billion trees, and they were just going to go in and plant 2 billion trees. And we sat with the minister and shared with the minister that you can't do that. You just can't go on the land and plant any old tree, because the harm that you're going to create is going to affect everything. Mm-hmm. So before you go planting trees, sit with the people. Get the knowledge from them as to what type of trees need to be planted there. And then you plant the trees. And in the future, we advise them that whenever you take something from Mother Earth, give back. Because we're thinking not just of our great-grandchildren, we're thinking way past that, 7 generations. We want Mother Earth to be there for them. When I think of our traditional practices and values, it comes from here, you know? When I deal with farmers, and I've said this so many times, I'm driving down a country road anywhere in Canada where there's farmers, and I look in the ditch and I see that green slime in the ditch, and I know that's the poisons they've put on those crops. They're poisoning our food. They have been for years. They're poisoning the land. They don't think of future generations. All they think about is this, and how they can work 9 months of the year and take 3 months off to go to Florida or whatever. They need to return to farming the way it was intended. Mm-hmm. You work the land. You look after the land, and she'll look after you.
They call them legends, but my grandmother said they're not Aesop's fables or Grimm's fairy tale. They're real things that happened in our history. And one of the things that we saw happening is a decline in our salmon returning. And one of our stories is about the king salmon who turned himself into a human and lived with the people. And then he saw that the people and then would go back to the water and come back every year. And there were ceremonies that happened. And, you know, they said that when you get the fish, you're supposed to take what you need from the fish and put the head in, if you don't, once you eat the good parts of it, the cheeks and eyes and that, right? And then the bones and that, fins, do a ceremony and put it back into the water. And people didn't realize that, and the old people said, didn't explain it well, is that those things that go back into the water and deteriorate provide nutrients for those things in the water, right? And then the legend of king salmon is he saw people abusing and overfishing. So he told the people, you're not doing the ceremony, you're not returning our bones to the water, and you're taking more than you need, and you're going to be punished. We're not going to come back. And so for a while, the salmon never returned because they were being punished. And so then finally they started to come back after the people learned the lesson, because he came and said, when they did manage to catch fish, they start doing the ceremony again. With the little one school, that's like our language immersion and that, every spring we host a salmon ceremony and teach the little ones to put the bones of fish back in, so fish will come back and tell them the story and teach them that. And it's being done now every year with, like, you see the little kids and elders and the sharing. And we started doing it in our Squamish Valley because they were overfishing up there. And the other thing is that development impacted the sea floor, and the deer go and eat the eelgrass and that, and like the salt lake, And then in the valleys, the BC Hydro, under their rights of way, spray pesticides, right, to kill plants from growing there. And I've always told them, I said, we need to stop them from doing that like 30 years ago, because then the deer go and eat the plants that are there, get the poison in their system, and then we shoot the deer and eat it and get the poisons. And if they're in the water and there's mercury and lead, then that gets into the deer. So it's like a circle of life, and we're all impacted. And then the other thing is being able to be sustainable on the land. And one of you shared, a couple of you, that we never overused an area. And once an area started to, the next year, not be a good return, moved to another area for the berries. And then, I remember my grandfather getting mad at us because we were lazy and didn't want to pick the huckleberries. So we broke off a big branch and we're eating the huckleberries. And we got in trouble. He says, what are you going to eat next year? I went, well, huckleberries. He said, how? You just broke off the branches. How's it going to grow back? Takes long. And he said, and every year you pick the berry and the taja, the wild blueberries and that. When you pick them, the next year they'll be bigger and juicier. And they always get better, new plants. And we went, oh. And so, that was a teaching when we were about 8 years old. And then we taught our children that.
Okay, well then I'll just describe to you what I just described, which is our way from the Guyana Goa, which is the Great Peace. And we learn the way that we're supposed to deal with a lot of things, because the tools are all there as to how we deal with each other, how we deal with the world, anything that goes on. We bring it to the clan. And we have in the Mohawks, we have 3 main clans, but there are other clans. He's from the Tuscaroras, and they have more clans. But They follow the same system.
Bear Clay.
Yes. You're Bear?
Yeah.
That's my brother. I'm Bear too. There's nothing that's going to spread ideas and thoughts into the community better than the clan system, that we do it. Everybody has to understand. And when we do it, we have everybody there. Children, adults, old people, they're all there. They're part of the clan. Each one of them has as much right to say something as anybody. And it does take into who you are, where you come from, what the great law says, what about us and our ideas to sustain peace, or to create peace, or to create some kind of a solution to a situation.
You know, the dialogue that we're having with non-Indigenous people is a bit encouraging, but also discouraging. I think younger people are starting to understand it. Because of global warming and environmental change it's on everybody's mind, and I'm always encouraged. I love what you all said, because lately I've been thinking our ancestors are looking after us. I'd be out fishing with my dad, and he would say, we thought we saw a moose. My dad had better eyesight than I did, and we were fishing, and so we went over to see the moose. We got there, it was a bear, and the bear was coming down the side of a hill. And my dad said, if you watch a bear and it cuts itself, it'll go to like a pine tree and take the sap and put it on its cut. And I thought, that's medicine. And so I thought, okay. But I think every day we have discussions with our families and our community, and our ancestors say, hey, don't forget about this. But I think, we're more and more of these discussions are happening in our families and our communities. A lot of encouragement that's going on. I think COVID, you all talked about COVID. People were worried about where they were going to get their food from. And all of my daughters started growing things, And my daughter Sarah started growing tobacco. And I got another daughter that was, growing sage and then plants and all that. And so I think our ancestors reminded us, and the knowledge is there. And I'm just going to say one last thing. My grandmother was a midwife, and every time a baby would come in, she would hold the baby like this and talk to the baby in Tuscarora or Mohawk, depending on the baby, where the baby's from, and she'd kiss it, and the baby would be, the mother and the baby, the family would be God, and she'd say, that baby knows everything it needs to know, And I didn't understand what she was saying. And a few years ago, I was working with some Cree midwives, and they were saying, when the spirit comes into the physical world, that spirit already knows everything. Mm-hmm. It's our job is to teach it. It's the animal's job to teach it. It's the earth's job to teach it. And so I don't think we lose anything. We're always worried about losing stuff, using knowledge. But, I think the earth and the animals and the plants and the water, the air is our teacher.
As a Métis person, I am somewhat representing the urban people in many ways, and recognizing the fact that some of the people of all of our communities have never had the opportunity to learn the important things that each and every one of you are sharing with us today. And I think my role as a Métis person is, like each and every one of you, is to recognize the importance of the land. I live in British Columbia. I cannot speak for Métis people who live in other provinces, but I recognize and I know that in British Columbia, Métis people do not have a land base, but we can be good neighbors, we can be good friends of those people on whose territory we all identify as our homes. And within that, we can recognize the importance of all those words that have been said by each of you, the importance of recognizing not to overfish, not to take all of the plants or inappropriately harvest in whatever manner we can. And I certainly know that in my community and with the people I interact with, those are the voices, those are the words that are being shared, especially with our young people, for them to recognize what each of you have said, that the land has to be there for the future generations, that we cannot, follow those elements of colonialism where you just devastate the land or take it and think of the consequences afterwards. You mentioned the fact of putting a causeway of some kind without even thinking of the importance of what's going on. And each of you in your own way have indicated that, it's not because you don't value progress, but you want progress that's done in a sustainable, conscientious, caring way that is for the benefit of all people. And I think if that's what my role needs to be, then that's what my role will be, is to ensure that I share that particular kind of vision, that for each Indigenous person, no matter where we live in this world, we have to look at the future. We have to look at the sustainability of the land that we're all sharing, no matter who we are, and we need to protect it and care for it in the best way each one of us can do. And I certainly know that, as you were mentioning, we have to start off by educating the little ones, who in some ways start to educate the ones that are a little bigger as we go along, and sort of support them in their teaching opportunities as well.
I'd just like to mention that at the University of Manitoba, we have land-based teachers, and it's so comical, that in the last 5 years, that's become a big thing in the universities, is land-based teaching. And I've shared with some of these teachers, I says, we were doing land-based teachings 30, 40 years ago, and now it's coming back. But it's so beautiful to watch our young people. They're learning the languages, they're learning the traditions, the customs, the ceremonies. And like you mentioned, our ancestors are speaking to us and saying, bring these things back. And they will come back. Our young people will bring it back. As elders or older people, we've seen such a huge influx of so many different things. We say we've evolved as human beings, but in many ways we've regressed. We've forgotten that without Mother Earth, we wouldn't exist. Like if the whole human race was to be wiped out, Mother Earth would flourish. Our relatives, the four-legged, the winged ones, those that swim, those that crawl, those tall standing ones, they'd all flourish because they don't need us, but we need them, So our hopes is that we'll get the message out to many, many, many people, and in turn they will teach others, Learn to live with the land, not on the land. I know in Manitoba we're seeing our young people from different universities who want to learn. You can see they're little sponges and they want to learn. We, as older people, need to teach them, you know. And I know I've heard it in our communities across this country. Oh no, we can't teach these ceremonies to others. It belongs to us. Where did we learn it belongs to us? Nothing belongs to us, you know? Life is a gift. The house we live in, that's a gift that we worked for, yes. But we don't take it with us when we return to the spirit world. There's only us that goes into the Mother Earth, you know. So, as we go through life, to get that message out to our young people, you know, and watch their eyes as you share the teachings, you know, big eyes and smiles, and they take it on and start teaching their children. Like, I've got 7 children, 9 grandchildren, and a whole bunch of great-grandchildren. That's the blessing of life, you know. Riches and all that, I don't have any need for that. I have my relatives. So. How are we going to sustain the earth as the population grows? It's up to each and every human being to be part of that. It's like reconciliation. It's up to every human being to be part of reconciliation. That it's not something between Indigenous people and the government or the church. It's every human being has to take part in that. Miya sin, life is good.